My husband, age 32, and I, age 28, have been together for 8 years and married for 5. We have 2 children, and he is a great dad. Our marriage is good. We have our ups and downs, but things have really improved in the past 2 years, with different communication styles being our biggest hurdle. We've never had major issues in our relationship. We always argue over the silliest things. I am his first relationship ever, but I have had previous relationships, including one brief engagement that ended because he cheated on me, among other things. He also had a stable childhood, whereas I did not, and I have serious abandonment issues. About 2 years ago, he started coming home from work telling me about this girl who was an employee of a company contracted by the company he works for. She was not really a direct report to him, but someone he had to give orders to occasionally. He started expressing how bad he felt for her because she was in a hurtful relationship with another employee whom he suspected was using drugs. This girl shared her life story with him, and he was genuinely concerned for her, as was I when he told me. He continued to bring up random things she said, and again spoke about how bad he felt for her. He eventually wrote a recommendation letter for her to get a job in a different location so she could get away from her boyfriend. The new job was with another company that is also contracted by his company, so occasionally there was some overlap or reasons for them to communicate, though not as frequently as before. What I find odd is that the boyfriend using drugs moved with her, so what was the point? Her mother actually worked with them too, so when she got a new job, he didn't see her anymore, but he still ran into her mother. He told me about this strange conversation with her mother, where her mother said, A, her daughter was very upset that D, my husband, hasn't called her since her new job started, and her mother was somewhat scolding my husband about it, saying, I really thought highly of you. Now, I will insert here to say that my husband and I are very open with our phones. From what I see on Reddit, this is not the norm, but it is not unusual for us to be on each other's phones. I wouldn't call it snooping because we both just use each other's phones interchangeably. It has always been like this, and we have never had issues. One day, I was using his phone for something and saw a message from her. Out of curiosity, because I had heard all the stories about her, I opened it. He had sent her a message asking if she wanted to come to our city, and she replied to just let her know when, and she would make it happen. I actually have a good understanding of their work and could not think of a single scenario where she would need to come here for work anymore. So I mentioned it because it felt very off. He became very upset with me, saying he has never given me a reason to doubt him. He hasn't, but I felt it was unhealthy for me to keep this feeling in. I just wanted to have a good conversation about it because it made me uncomfortable. I wanted a clear explanation. I feel like I am a logical person, but he just became defensive. This was several months ago, and I have let it go. It doesn't mean I've forgotten, it's just flagged in my mind for future reference. Since then, my husband got a new job, so he should genuinely have no reason to contact her for professional reasons. However, I have seen her name on his recent calls a few times, and he hasn't mentioned her since our argument about her. I checked their messages just to be sure I wasn't missing something significant. Basically, she texts him, "Hey, how are you?" And then he calls and talks to her, but he doesn't text her back. At this point, it feels like snooping, and I don't like that, but it feels self-preserving at this point. I have so much to lose. I know this may sound bad, but my one true concern is that my husband is very concerned about aesthetics. It's not even about looks for him, as much as the way a person presents themselves to the world. I have seen pictures of her, and I am not saying she is unattractive, but she is not at all what I would expect my husband to go for. I also think she is a tad older than him. I just can't see him with her. At the very least, I fear she is taking advantage of his good nature, and there may be some kind of savior complex going on, even though I don't understand it since the boyfriend moved with her. I also fear for his safety if the hurtful boyfriend on drugs finds out that she is talking to him. The whole situation makes me feel uncomfortable, and I don't know how to proceed without being accusatory. I don't like the secrecy of it. Now, for a few comments before the update. Comment 1. Since it sounds like you still have some issues you've been working on personally even before meeting him, abandonment, it might just be best to lay everything out there for him if you haven't already. It might sound excessive, but honestly, you need to take extra steps for yourself to help you cope and potentially not overthink. Couples therapy might be a good idea as well if you both haven't tried it before. Sure, it can help with resolving some past issues that both of you might have, but it can also help give you perspective on what has been going on and how things might appear to the other person, helping the other understand better. Just because an issue is known doesn't mean people know how to communicate, how to deal with it properly. An outside party can help manage things when life might get too chaotic at times. Comment 2. Update for anyone who is interested. I confronted him very straightforwardly and told him all the things I shared with you. He was taken aback and said that he truly didn't feel like he was giving her any more attention than he gave any of his other colleagues, that he always tries to be personable, but that he understands where I'm coming from, especially with my background. He said he can't attest to how she feels about him, but he promises they've never had a conversation he would be uncomfortable with me hearing. He said the reason they had to talk recently was that she was trying to return some equipment from her previous job, and he was trying to help her. Anyway, it was a good conversation. Thanks for all of your support. Now for the update. 2 days after my last post, I was just doing my regular thing, trying to keep it together, and I noticed my husband got a call from that woman while we were at home. Like, is this normal? He answered the call in another room, and I just sat there feeling all kinds of uneasy, like I had a rock in my stomach. He came back like everything was normal, but I just couldn't shake that feeling. Yeah, marriage has its ups and downs, but this was just off. A few days later, we went to a birthday party for my sister, and things got even weirder. We were all just trying to have a good time, and the husband got another call from this woman, stepping outside to take it. I mean, come on. I followed him outside, because I had to know what was going on. I heard him say he was worried about her situation and asked if she was okay. I was standing there, half listening to his conversation and half ready to explode. At the party, the husband was acting all overly friendly with all the other guests, and I couldn't help but think it was just for show. Like, why are you all smiles and charm when I'm here feeling like a total wreck? Later that night, I just had to check his phone again. Yeah, I know, probably not the best thing to do, but I was desperate. I found a text conversation where the woman thanked him for being so supportive. I mean, supportive of what? He came home late that night, saying he was helping a friend with a project. Really? A project that took all night? The next day, I decided it was time to confront him about all this communication, and honestly, I was shaking. He just brushed it off, saying he was trying to be a good person. A good person? More like a good target for my rage. The following weekend, we went to a family dinner at his parents' house, and guess what? During dinner, he got another call from this woman. He excused himself and went outside again, leaving me feeling totally isolated at the table. My sister noticed I was off and asked if everything was okay, and I just gave her a weak smile. He came back all laughing and joking, and honestly, it just made me even more irritated. After dinner, my mother-in-law was all proud of her son for being so helpful, and I just wanted to roll my eyes. The next day, I decided to do some digging. I found the woman's social media profile and noticed all these pictures of her with friends. One photo showed her with a new boyfriend, and the guy looked familiar. I thought, no way, this can't be happening. It was the same guy from a recent news story about domestic violence. My stomach dropped. I decided to visit a coffee shop nearby where this woman often posted about meeting friends. I sat at a table with a clear view of the entrance, hoping to spot her. After a while, she walked in with the same guy from the photo, and I couldn't believe my eyes. I discreetly took a picture of them together and just felt this wave of anger and sadness. I went home and immediately showed the photo to my husband. His face was all shocked, denying any wrongdoing, but couldn't explain the connection. Like, really? You can't see how deep you're in this mess? I decided to reach out to the woman's mother, who had previously expressed concern. We arranged a meeting, and I spilled everything. The mother was so grateful and promised to look into it further. A few days later, my husband confronted me about my involvement. He laid into me, but I just laid out everything I found, leaving no room for his usual denial. He finally admitted to feeling guilty for not cutting ties with her. I suggested we take a family trip to focus on rebuilding trust, and he agreed, realizing how serious this whole thing was. To answer a few questions, my husband had only met the woman once at a work event along with other employees. He had no prior knowledge of her before the hurtful relationship came to light. The woman had never expressed romantic interest in my husband, and he always described her as a friend in need. The hurtful boyfriend had no connection to my husband or our workplace. I had a close relationship with my sister, which is why she noticed my distress. My husband and I have been in couples therapy for a while now, which helped us navigate this situation and communicate effectively. Am I the idiot for expecting my boyfriend to support me when my family turned their backs on me? I, a 21-year-old female, and my boyfriend, a 21-year-old male, have been in a 7-month relationship. Recently, while staying at his house, I explained to him how I had been disowned the day before by my toxic dad. This is a common occurrence. He is emotionally and sometimes physically traumatized, hurtful. I expressed to my partner that I am really mentally drained and that I'm not quite ready to go home, as I had stayed at his house for 2 nights. I also expressed how I was going to contact a friend to see if they could have me over, not to overwhelm him by staying another night. After this, he had a complete breakdown, saying that he can't do anything to help and couldn't explain how he was feeling. I was very confused and continued to comfort him. He couldn't explain how he was feeling, as he usually struggles to do so, and cried for about an hour. At this point, it was getting late, and I asked him if he wanted me to stay another night, as I didn't want him to be alone. However, I said if he needed his space, that's also okay. He then proceeded to cry more and said things along the lines of, "I want you to stay, but I need my space. I feel like I'm doing something wrong by telling you to go." I told him it was okay, and we ended up leaving for the train station. I cried a lot at this point because I didn't get any comfort from my own issue, and that was still weighing on my mind. We drove in silence and had 30 minutes before the train would arrive. I asked him why he hadn't asked how I was, and he got stressed again. I cried a lot and ended up saying, "I just needed some comfort. I have to go back home, and my friend couldn't have me over. You get to ask your family for comfort, but I can't do that." I admit I shouldn't have said that, but in the moment, my stress and sadness had built up too much as I had put it aside to comfort him. He then hugged me, saying that he didn't know what to do. The train was now 2 minutes from departing, and I had to run. I was crying and ran for the train. We didn't get to say a proper goodbye. I texted him when I got home, about an hour and a half of travel, and said I made it back safely. I then tried to ask about his evening, and he replied after a long time with a blunt message, "Fine, thanks. Not really done anything." So I replied the next morning as I fell asleep waiting for his message, "I'm not going to force conversation after yesterday. You didn't even ask if I'm okay. Talk to me when you are ready. Please just communicate." He then responded with, "Yeah, I'm sorry. I just need time and a bit of space. I'll try my best to communicate that." I finally responded with, "That's fine. Just talk when you are ready to throw. If it's more than a day, please tell me you need more time. I don't know how to go about this. Please help me out. I am not sure how to confront this because I still feel hurt. It's been a day, and he hasn't responded with anything. What should I do in this situation?" Now for a few comments before the update. Comment 1. It's strange how similar this is to what's going on in my life. It's not exactly the same, but still creepy. I'll say this, my partner has grown a lot in just the last month or so, and it's been while my whole life has fallen completely apart. He's trying to communicate his emotions now and is really invested in my well-being, something no one in my life has ever done other than him. He has the capacity to change for the better. Everyone does. He has to decide if he's going to be that better person with you or with someone else. Comment 2. You accidentally cut your finger. Run to your boyfriend saying, "Honey, I cut my finger. It hurts. Can you please help?" "Oh God, I can't stand the sight of blood. I think I'm going to be sick." And then you are the one taking him to the doctor. The analogy is somewhat simplistic but apt. He can't deal with your injury, so he made it about him, and now you're comforting him. I agree with the post saying he's probably not emotionally mature enough. I can't tell if he's selfish, immature, or a bit of both. Now for the update. 2 weeks later, I finally got the guts to check in on my boyfriend. I know it took me this long. I just didn't know what to say or if he even wanted to hear from me, but I missed him. I honestly wasn't expecting a reply, but he actually texted back. He suggested we meet up at a diner nearby, so of course I agreed. I just needed to see him. I was a nervous wreck the whole day. I was excited, but also kinda scared. I didn't know where we stood. I pulled into the diner parking lot and took a deep breath. So many memories of us came rushing back, just the good times. I walked into the diner and saw him already sitting there. He had a plate of fries and a soda in front of him. We exchanged awkward hellos. It was just so quiet. Then he said he needed to talk. I just braced myself for whatever was coming. He confessed he had been struggling with his mental health and didn't know how to express it. Honestly, I was relieved he told me that. It made a little bit of sense, but I wish he had said something sooner. I tried to share a bit about my issues with my dad, but I didn't get much of a reaction from him. He was listening, but he kept glancing at his phone like he was waiting for a text or something. I get it. Life goes on, right? He was probably dealing with his issues, too, but it just felt like he was so far away, even though he was sitting right across from me. After a while, we changed the subject and talked about lighter stuff. We joked around a little, but that heaviness was still there. It was just hanging around. After we finished eating, we decided to take a walk to get some fresh air. He mentioned he felt overwhelmed by my family issues, which surprised me. He knew what I was dealing with from the start. It was just part of me, Then he suddenly stopped walking, looked serious, and said he wanted to take a break from our relationship. I felt my heart drop. He said he needed time to sort out his feelings and couldn't handle everything at once. I didn't know what to say. I just nodded. I needed to process all of this, so we said our goodbyes and I left. The next day, out of nowhere, I got a text from my mom asking if we could meet up for coffee. I was surprised because things had been really awkward between us too. We used to be so close, but ever since my dad disowned me, it's been a mess. I said sure. She asked me to meet her at this cute coffee shop. I got there and saw her sitting at a table, looking kinda nervous. It felt weird between us, almost like we were strangers. After some small talk, she told me my dad had been trying to reach out. I was confused because he wasn't supposed to be contacting anyone in our family. I just cut him off from my life. I didn't want to see him ever again. But my mom said she was really concerned about the impact of my dad's behavior on our family. She said my siblings were really upset by it all. I didn't want to talk about him or anything related to him. I just wanted to be free of that. My mom then asked what had happened between me and my dad for me to cut him off. I told her, and she was shocked. She had no idea he would go that far. She said she was really sorry for how he treated me. It felt good to let it out, but it was also exhausting. After that, we talked about other stuff, and it felt nice to reconnect. Later that week, I decided to call my dad for closure. I don't know why I did it either. I guess I just had to hear him out. I needed to know why he did what he did. He answered, sounding surprised. I told him it was me, and he got defensive about my feelings. We started off okay, but then it turned into accusations and hurtful words. It was a mess. I felt like I was 16 again, just screaming at him. After that, I found out my boyfriend was hanging out with a mutual friend of ours. We had a group dinner planned for that weekend, so I was a little annoyed. I didn't want to see him, but I also wanted to talk to him about everything. We got to the dinner, and I could tell he was being distant. He was laughing with everyone, but he avoided me. It just felt cold. During a break in the festivities, I confronted him. I asked him why he was acting like that. He admitted to feeling suffocated by my family drama and said he needed space to breathe. I was just so done at that point. The next day, I got an unexpected call from my brother. He had news. He told me our dad was considering moving back to town. I was like, no way. I texted my boyfriend about it, sharing how it impacted me. He replied with a short message, saying he was busy and couldn't talk. I didn't know what to say, so I just left it. A few days went by without any contact from him. I decided to call him again. This time, he picked up but sounded really distracted. He said he was dealing with personal stuff. We agreed to meet up later that week. Finally, we met up and he revealed he was considering moving away for a job opportunity. I mean, it was just so much to deal with. I didn't know how to react. Mini update. We talked about our struggles, but he still wanted space. He later mentioned moving away for a job, which left me feeling even more confused about our relationship. Am I the idiot for demanding my boyfriend choose between his jealous best friend and our relationship? My boyfriend and I have been dating for more than a year, and it's pretty serious. We have met each other's families, and although we can't move in together right now due to work and studies, we plan to do so soon. The relationship is very loving, and I truly believe that he cares very much for me. The issue arises when his best friend, who he has known for 3 years, tries to meddle in our relationship. She often gets angry, upset, or stonewalls us whenever she wants to spend time with my boyfriend, and he and I have already planned something as a couple. That being said, they still hang out one-on-one and with their respective partners, me and the best friend's girlfriend, on a weekly basis, just less often than before he met me. The last of these incidents occurred last Tuesday. My boyfriend and I are planning on going to Europe this December to visit his relatives and see some Christmas decorations. And we spoke about our plans during a gathering at which she was present. The best friend got so upset that she left without saying goodbye to anybody. It turns out the problem is that she has daydreamed about taking the trip with my boyfriend and felt crushed and upset that he was planning on taking me instead. This is the most recent of similar instances. Honestly, her behavior seems disrespectful to me, leaving without saying goodbye even when I went up to her to say goodbye and was ignored. She rolled her eyes at me instead and to my relationship. In my view, although I admit it's only my opinion and some may disagree, when friends get into serious relationships that require time and effort, I understand I'll receive a little less of those. I've been on the friend side of the equation, and I've dealt with it without taking it out on the friend or the partner. I never forbade them from hanging out, even one-on-one. I just expect to be my boyfriend's number one girl and not have to share my spot with someone else. The best friend also has a partner who is 20 years old and identifies as a homosexual, while the best friend is bisexual. She never took into account that my boyfriend might feel abandoned while she plans things with her partner. I feel she sees me as an accessory she can tolerate when it doesn't interfere with her plans and can get rid of when I threaten her top spot on the list. My boyfriend admits her behavior is disrespectful, but also not that serious. So, I gave him an ultimatum. Either he steps up and talks to her, or I won't be present at any social gathering at which she is going. I just don't want to be in a place where I don't feel appreciated or respected. He said he will think about it. My questions are, am I overreacting or overthinking this? Is my boyfriend right in not standing up for me with her? Are there any ways I or he could diffuse the situation? Thanks in advance to anyone who comments. Now, for a few comments before the update. Comment 1. Thank you. Maybe ultimatum doesn't properly describe what was said. I simply told him that either he sorted things out with her and told her how he feels, or he'd just have to keep us separate and not invite me when she would be attending, since I really don't want to put myself in situations where I feel unwanted and disrespected anymore. The instance of the trip I recalled in the post was only the last of other similar instances, so I know what I'm getting into when we go out, and she's there if he doesn't confront her. Edited. Spelling. Comment 2. He said he'll think about it? That's not boyfriend behavior. That's a guy who loves the attention and doesn't care about the giant problem she's causing because he likes knowing the two of you are arguing over him. You are not your boyfriend's number one girl. You're, at best, tied for first with someone else. Why are you trying so hard to force it? He obviously doesn't care if you're happy or not. Don't rearrange your life for someone who doesn't even view you as important in his. Now, for the update. 2 days after that lovely, not at all uncomfortable dinner party, my boyfriend suggests we do it again, but this time at his parents' house to celebrate his dad's birthday. I mean, I can't say no to that, right? So we go, and honestly, I thought we could leave that crap behind us, but no, not even close. We get there, and everyone's in a good mood, cracking jokes, telling old stories. It felt nice, honestly. But then, halfway through dinner, guess who shows up? His best friend. Uninvited. Everyone goes quiet for a second, but then welcomes him like it's totally normal. He gives me a half-hearted nod. I mean, at this point, it's like he's allergic to eye contact. Literally sits right across from me, and the first thing he does, makes a sarcastic comment about my dessert. Like, dude, I didn't ask for a food critic. The boyfriend just laughs it off, calling it his friend being playful. Playful? Yeah, okay. After dinner, we move to the living room for cake. His friend makes a toast, and I'm bracing myself for the worst. He says something about how some people can't handle a little competition in friendships. The boyfriend just chuckles, and that's it. No defense, no backup, just laughs it off. Then the friend has the audacity to say that my boyfriend needs to make a choice between us, and as soon as I walk back in, he smirks at me, like I'm not even in the room. The boyfriend's mom suggests a game to lighten the mood. Great idea, right? The best friend volunteers to be the team captain and picks everyone but me. Yep, the classic move. After the game, he says, some people just don't fit in. Wow, what a guy. My boyfriend finally tells him to chill out, but honestly, it's like too little too late. Then I hear them outside the door, and he's making fun of me to my boyfriend. My boyfriend doesn't say a thing. When I walk back in, the whole atmosphere shifts. Everyone looks uncomfortable. The boyfriend's mom asks if everything's okay, and the best friend chimes in with his snide remark about needing to keep the peace. After cake, he suggests we all go out for drinks, and my boyfriend hesitates. We get in the car to go home, and he asks me about his friend seeming off lately. Off? That's an understatement. He brushes off the entire evening, saying it's just his friend being himself. Oh, so now we're just ignoring it? Just don't react to his comments, he says. So we get home, and he heads to the bathroom. I'm left alone with my thoughts, and honestly, they're not pretty. He comes out and asks where I'm going, looking confused when I tell him I'm going home. He pleads with me to stay, and I'm just over it. The next day, I get a text from him saying he talked to the best friend. I'm thinking, finally, we're getting somewhere. But then I see his post on social media. A trip to Europe with my boyfriend. Edit. I didn't provide a lot of context in my original post, so I'll clarify some points that might help explain the situation better. My boyfriend and I are both in our late 20s, and we've been serious for about a year and a half. He has known his best friend from childhood, and I get that their friendship is important to him. The best friend has been in a relationship for about a year too, but it doesn't seem to have affected her friendship with my boyfriend the same way. I do feel like my boyfriend hasn't been as attentive to my needs lately. After the Europe trip fiasco, we are on a break. He might be going on that trip as a way to avoid the confrontation. If you like this video, you'll probably like these too. Also, while you're here, please consider subscribing. It's your support that keeps this channel alive and allows me to make better and longer videos. Have a great day.